Just allow the Instagram people to see us as well, and then we're going to start. If anybody wants to join us on Zoom, I'm going to open up that so you guys can if you choose. Ask questions if you'd like. All right. That. You all. Okay. Awesome. All right, let's do it. And then last thing, Elise, your Instagram is at stella.muse.
It is, yes.
Awesome. I really test my memory on all these things. I'm always
absolutely, especially when you're dealing with so many people.
I'm always promoting something. I'm always promoting something, and I'm like, what's the... I notice I find information out of the sky. Like whenever I'm trying to find, I grab it from somewhere. So
it's there.
Okay. Live with at Stella.News. All right. We're good to go. Cool. Thank you for allowing me to get all the technology straight. Hello, everyone out there, wherever you're tuning in from. Okay. All right, let's do it. Excuse the dizziness that I just gave you guys on Instagram as I'm spinning the camera around. Anyways, all right, let's do it. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Enlightened Conversations. Really excited for today and to introduce you guys to an awesome guest who is joining us from Melbourne, Australia. And we have Elise Carr with us. And Elise is an awesome human. She bridges Western psychological sciences with Eastern ancient wisdom. I think I actually got that correct just now. I'm impressed. And I discovered Elise not too long ago on Instagram and immediately saw the love and light she was sharing with her audience and knew we would have a fun conversation. So I reached out to her and she obliged, and she's going to have a fun conversation with us today. So excited for you guys to meet her. And without further ado, for me, I want to introduce you guys to Elise. And if you could share with the audience so they're more familiar with you, who you are, what you do, why you do it, all these good things.
Yeah, just a couple of simple questions he throws at me. Thank you, Noel, for having me. It's a joy to be here. What I do, wow, okay, so you kind of said it. My main focus is bridging what we call modern psychological sciences, which is more the orthodox psych path in some ways, which deals a lot with the mind, but my school of study and training and practice is the esoteric psychology. So that means we don't just deal with the mind, we also deal with the physical body, the emotional body, which some of us call the astral body, the mind, yes, and then what's beyond that, which modern science has yet to prove there is a soul, but in esoteric psychology, like many of the Eastern wisdoms that have been going for far longer than we have, they know there is the soul. So yes, I look at all those components of people, whether that's women or men, however people identify, and couples as well. And from the other part of it, the Eastern wisdom or the mysticism or the esoteric, tantric, yogic and Buddhist paths all kind of combine in my element of that side of the path, I suppose. And blending these is key because we're not singular, we're multifaceted, we're extremely complex, and yet sometimes we can be extremely simple. And sometimes we need to find the right door to go through for each individual person that comes before us. So for me, offering a more diverse and more multi-layered approach to the psychological and spiritual way of life allows me to be able to help people where they are, depending on what they need in that time. Because some people come to me and it might be an emotional crisis, but really their personality nature, their habits, their addictions, their patterns is what's holding them back and is what's causing those emotional disturbances or chaos or upset. So one way will lead us eventually to the same path, but which path we need to take initially depends on the individual. So I like to specifically tailor every session I do to the individual and not have a one-size-fits-all by any means. And I suppose this is because my why is that I believe we're here to grow and evolve. I believe we're here to have an incredible existence far beyond Netflix and chill, beyond drugs and sex, beyond stuff and the material world, which is something that we're drowning in really in this day and age, but it's so limiting and it's never enough. It's kind of like grasping at smoke in some ways, because when you go for it, you open your hand and it's gone. That's every external desire that we chase. It's never going to fulfill us. It's never going to nourish us. So I want to help people switch their focus, especially at some point along the path when they're ready, from a materialistic or an external focus to an internal focus. Something that's true and wise and beautiful and of love. And that's why often the words that I use, and you might have seen that maybe on my Instagram or my social media, is about truth and wisdom and love and beauty, because ideally I feel there are fundamental principles, but what we think love is often the romantic hallmark approach. What we think beauty is often just external. What we think wisdom is really just knowledge that we've learned in a book that we haven't actually applied or learned it properly. So some of these, when we don't get them quite right, how do we actually get to our truth? How do we get to what we really are? Who we really are, if you choose to put it that way, why we're here, and living that purpose, living that calling. And essentially that's what I want to assist in guiding people. That's why I don't call my sessions cycle counselling sessions or spiritual sessions. They're sacred guidance sessions. I want to guide people closer to their experience of sacred, however that looks for them, however far that journey may be for them. And that's my joy. It's my absolute joy. So that's my why, I guess, in one word, it's my joy. 2 words.
Elise, you just answered that so beautifully. I'm so happy that you just started the conversation in that way, and I could go so many directions with this right now. You inspired me in so many different ways. And I just love how, and I have a question for you, because I'm always curious how someone has the light bulb come on for them, because a knowing that I have is that we come here as these unconditional, loving little babies, and we're fully aware of the non-physical energy that we truly are, and we're not stuck in the illusion that we're separate and thinking that all we are is these physical bodies that we see when we look in the mirror. And we're aware of this as little babies, and then for most of us, we forget along the path, along the journey, and then it's the reason I do what I do and so many do what they do is so that the light bulb can come back on, and then we can realize who we truly are, like you mentioned. And what I love, and the reason why I love how you just described what you described, is how that light bulb can come on in so many different ways, in infinite ways, as far as whether it be someone that shares something with you, just a reminder of truth, or if you read a book, or discover a podcast like this, or whatever the case may be. But once that light bulb is on, I love knowing that the evolution that our soul is going to do anyway, once we're consciously do it, and we can allow information and just new awarenesses to come from infinite sources, it's just a never-ending journey, and it's so much fun when we are consciously open to it and allowing new awarenesses to come from wherever they may come. And it's awesome what you're doing, because you're able to meet people where they are and share with them whatever might be relevant for them where they are on their journey, and then help them evolve from there. So beautiful what you're doing. How did you, as far as light bulb come, were you one of the few humans where from unconditional loving little baby to what we see today, you just never forgot and just evolved all the way through? Or
oh yeah, it was completely linear. Nothing at all was challenging my life. It was just a perfect, seamless voyage. I have lots of love. I had especially an incredible mother who was kind of like, it reminds me of the hand, when the bird can sit on the hand and it can come and go and come and go. So from a young age, I did travel a lot. My last life, aka the beginning of this life, I was actually a foreign correspondent journalist and an international model, which is so far removed from where I am now. And partly the reason why I am where I am now is because that world, or those two worlds, lacked the substance, lacked a connection to truth and wisdom and beauty and really innate love. But back at that time, when I was in that world, I didn't know that entirely. I understood something was missing, like this intangible je ne sais quoi, something I was deeply, ferociously hungry for. But it's kind of all I knew. I got a piece of paper. I was, in the sense of, a university degree, and I was living in different countries, and I was doing what I loved as such. I loved writing. I loved modelling from a sense of creating art, which everyone's got a different opinion of that. And there's many dark sides to that industry. for the record, I never bought into the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I was kind of a Puritan in a very weird way, and somehow managed to still be in that world, but not of that world, which is kind of how I see this experience of life anyway. But at the age of 22, when I was living overseas, modelling, doing a little bit of journal work, but mainly full-time modelling at this point on this stint, I had an ultimatum from my partner at the time, who I thought was the love of my life, who I still refer to now as a love of my life, to come back to Australia. And in that very moment, I chose to invest in our relationship and do what he wanted, I suppose what I wanted, which was to go to another country and continue this cycle for some time until I was ready to come back. 100% faithful to him and 100% faithful to my work, but I chose to come back, and I wasn't faithful to myself in some ways. Yet, ironically enough, in a couple of days after that, I was actually hospitalised with a cyst on my ovary that ruptured, and my heart flatlined 4 times, mainly because of the toxins from the rupture that caused the heart, because apparently I was disgustingly healthy, so the cardiologist told me. I was quite fortunate that I was almost excessively exercising at the time, because it did give my heart a lot of extra strength and nourishment to get through this time. But this was probably what I call a crossroads, or almost a dark night of the soul for me at the age of 22. And I'm now well into my 30s, for the record, so it's quite a long time ago. And it was at that time where I really had to figure out who I was, in a sense, because what took probably a few weeks to kind of start to solidify was a realisation that I'm not a model. Not that I ever call myself that, but I couldn't even do modelling, because once I got out of intensive care, I couldn't walk, I couldn't drive, I couldn't actually bend over to shave my legs or lift my arms to wash my hair. That's how much of a kind of a bone with skin draped over it I was, and also so empty and hollow inside. I felt completely lost, isolated. My partner left me. I moved back home with my mum, which was a beautiful blessing. I'm very grateful that I could go back home to a loving home to kind of rebuild and nourish myself. I couldn't get a real job, as it was called then, with my degree. Everything that I associated myself with, everything I attached myself to externally, wasn't there to grasp onto. I had to find something that was real. And I had a conversation at the time with my auntie who lives in the UK, and she said to me, you know, you've written all these epic emails. This is back in a time of MySpace and instant messenger and email. And that's how I would connect with my loved ones. I wrote epic emails about my journeys, about the jobs, about the life, about the experiences, about things I was saying no to and things I was saying yes to. And she's like, why don't you take all your amazing emails and write a fab book? And I was like, I want to write a book. And so I made a decision in my mind to get up every day, which was a big effort to get out of bed, and walk to the next room, which was the study, and sit down every day for about 8 hours and just type and type and type and create this fab book, which I'm now, years and years and years on, seeking an agent for, a literary agent in New York. I was just doing some submissions yesterday. So it's been a really long journey with that book. But it wasn't about the book. The book was my, tangible external that I could hold on to. But what it was really doing is allowing me to hold up a mirror to myself, because that book was largely based on my life that I fictionalised, a young woman in this modelling world trying to find out what's true and real and wise and beautiful. So as much as I was writing this fictional character, it was me, and I was starting to understand myself better, and I realised this hunger needs to be nourished and fed. And that's when I decided that perhaps I was going to hang up my heels for international modelling, not quit modelling in general, but not pursue as my career, and neither be a foreign correspondent anymore in London or Paris or Serbia or whatever it was, and go back to university, get my master's, get a few more pieces of paper, and even from there, that still wasn't enough. I still had to go back and live on my own, isolated in a country, lose myself, die some more, let go of what we call in esoteric psychology glamours, these kind of foggy, illusory mirages that we think are real that aren't. The smoke, right? Still peeling back the layers, gathering more pieces of paper from Tantra and yoga and other philosophies, Reiki, then coaching, integrative studies, all this kind of stuff. And eventually I got to this point towards my late 20s that I realised I've got all these pieces of paper, I have all this experience, I finally healed my heart, healed my body, but now it's time to be of service. And that was the real key. I had to obviously crash and burn and almost die physically, emotionally, and mentally it was a challenge too to overcome all that. But really the real change came when I was like, I need to create this platform, this living entity, this place where I can serve people and take all that I've learned and turn into something actually of use. So it was almost like an alchemical moment, I suppose, turn that kind of base metal to gold. And that's when I started really converting Stellar Muse from a concept into an online platform, an online magazine originally, and then start to work one-on-one with people, do groups, do talks, run workshops and events, and be where I am now, I suppose, many years on. So, very long-winded answer, that one, but yeah, took my heart flatlining, I suppose, before I decided I wanted to change my life and bring more real heart and soul into my experience of this reality to serve.
I love it. You illustrated that so beautifully. Thank you for sharing it that way. I think it's so important for us to be able to, especially with all the powerful things that are flowing from you now already in this conversation, important for people to see that the journey typically doesn't go from bright-eyed, bushy-tailed baby to just like what you see today in front of you. If you look at any human being out there and you're like, oh, they're awesome. That's a reflection of you. So just know that the same non-physical energy that they're flowing through them and their creations is the same non-physical energy flowing through you out there. So it's just awesome because we are all mirrors for each other and reflections of each other. And what you described, you mentioned it a few times, so I know it's definitely been a big part of your journey. Probably my biggest challenge a decade ago was always reaching for the external in order for me to feel the way I wanted to feel internally. The success, I'll be happy when syndrome is really what I like to call it. And, it stemmed from thinking that I was going to be in a certain place by a certain time, early 20s, thinking I was going to play professional sports. And when that didn't work out, all of a sudden being very lost. And everything became about how can I now have the success that I thought I was going to have. So that caused a lot of present moment depression. And so, fast forward 10 years later, it wasn't just like I attracted Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, which was super useful to me at that time because that was like I was the gold medalist at not appreciating the now. It was just like future, 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 future. And so now I consider that to be, if not my greatest, one of my greatest strengths is so hyper-focused on the only moment promised to any of us. And not even that this moment has to be anything doesn't have to be my most amazing moment that I've ever lived. It also doesn't have to be the most powerless and depressed moment that I've ever had either. Like a chill, peaceful vibe is something that I really enjoy. And then we can all allow momentum to carry us to some of the frequencies where we're like, wow, I'm having a really good time right now. And we can label that whatever we want to call it, happiness, joy, love, bliss, whatever. So I appreciate you mentioned it twice as far as I think it's really common for humanity to reach for outside. I'll be happy when I have the relationship or I have the health or I have the career or whatever it is. And, in my experience, that's the quickest way to be unhappy now is always.
Yeah, agreed. Sometimes I ask people, what would you be if you didn't have your title, if you didn't have your car and your house, if you didn't have those pieces of paper or the money, the wardrobe, or the achievements, sporting achievements, let's say, who would you be? What would you be? And even just contemplating that, for some people it feels like nihilism. It feels like a death. It's unfathomable for some people. It actually can be quite revelatory or illuminating, or even just something like an opportunity for you to shift your perspective on life, because we hold so much focus, so much emphasis on the external. For some of us, we get the opportunity, like for you perhaps, that sporting career ended for a certain reason and that helped you have an opportunity for different perspective, finding the power of now and Carr Tolle. I'd say, yeah, I had that too. When I didn't have my health, when I couldn't even walk, I realised how incredible the physical body is, how incredible the emotional body is, how incredible the mental body is to overcome these things as well. Even if you don't choose to be in certain fields, doesn't mean you can't have those as part of your life. I'm sure you still enjoy being active and well-being and physical health is still important, but you realise that was only a fraction of my capacity. Sometimes if we limit ourselves to being, a painter or a lawyer or an engineer or whatever it is, we box ourselves in. And there's a comfort and a familiarity to that because we like compartmentalisation. And we can thank the patriarchy and masculinity for this, because it's a very masculine-driven mindset. Don't get me wrong, when I say masculine, we all have it too. Women, men, whoever you identify, we all have a masculine and feminine essence or way, like a being and doing nature, yin and yang, I guess a restful and a forceful nature. But sometimes this masculine mindset, especially in the world we live in, can really take over. And it can really almost make us feel guilty if we aren't doing and pushing and achieving. And even just the word success, like even our modern world of success is so, disjointed in a way. We think it has to relate to a title, a certain amount of income, provide us a certain amount of external lifestyle. Why isn't success being able to actually hold a point of focus in meditation? Why isn't success in raising a beautiful child who's going to be a true gift to this world, who's going to make a difference by looking after them and giving them a great education and nourishment and love, unconditional love and support to let them be who they want to be? Why isn't that success? No, raising a kid's just like, for most people, something either you do to tick a box on your list of things, climbing a ladder, or we don't understand the innate beauty and joy and wisdom in that. Where we put our focus is what I'm trying to say. As we know, where attention goes, energy flows. Are we putting our attention in the right areas? Is our perception of success really success, or is it an illusory reality that we've created for ourselves to make ourselves feel good and comfortable and honestly perpetuate capitalism and materialism and actually keep ourselves separate? And you mentioned that word before, it separates us. To me, this is the crux of the matter. There's materialism and there's, spirituality or love or whatever that truth or source or God or whatever you want to call it is. We have the material world and we have this other world that we can't always see or connect to, yet we're always hungry for it. We think the job or the car or the money is going to help us feel that, but anything, like I said before, we grab for is never enough. It satisfies us for a moment, like chocolate or cake, and then you still want more, or an orgasm, or a line of Coke, or a new jacket, whatever it is. You're never satisfied. You always want more. And this is what can actually lead to addiction, either addiction the way we think or addiction our behaviour. So I want us, I suppose, in this world to become more aware of where we put the emphasis and our focus, because that's going to create the energy of our life. Are we so focused on success and achieving, let's say, getting married in a year and getting a dog or a cat or a child getting married, that we're not actually investing in the relationship? Because if your relationship isn't in a great place and you're getting all this external stuff, it's actually going to crumble on top of you because you won't have the strength to see it through. I see this in couples. And not just because of lockdown, might just exasperate it or emphasise it or be the catalyst, but it's not it on its own. And I also see this in people. They seek to gain and gather and collect and have so much stuff that they lose their connection, or perhaps they've already really lost it and they don't know where to go, to something else, to something greater, to who they really are. And I guess I've kind of come back full circle, this concept of who we really are again, but this is what I see time and time again. And it affects people differently. And some people, it affects them on a physical level. Some people, it affects them with their emotions and the moods that are crazy high and crazy low and they don't know how to control it. And for some people, it's the mind that just doesn't stop, which, of course, the mind doesn't stop. But we have to learn to slow it and to focus it. And that's the beauty of meditation. Different types of meditation, of course, but let's say Raja Yoga or esoteric meditation, where you're focusing one pointedly on a certain point, on a certain seed thought, on a certain visualization. And there's places for other meditation, like, guided practices or relaxation. They're beautiful and they've got their place too, but eventually to get to a place where we can actually use the mind with the heart, that to me is a place of gold. That to me is where our power lies. We're not there yet because we're living below the belly button in what we call the primal animal nature, let's call it, kind of where the sex, drugs and rock and roll is, where the stuff is, where what makes me feel good now, how can I feel happy now, turned on now, pleasured now, how can I have my desires and needs and wants met? We're too self-focused, externally even, and not self-focused within to be selfless and serve. Because that's what love is. Love is selfless service. Love isn't necessarily a poem or to make you feel good when you don't feel good. That might be kindness, might be a way to express compassion even, but it's not love. We've completely lost what love is because we've been so focused elsewhere on our own pleasure and quick fixes. The fast, cheap and easy, like the fast food of life, I think of it, like a drive-through sometimes, that we've lost our way. And this is humbling in some ways and deeply saddening in another. I like to think in the climate that we're in right now, perhaps with a bit of time, maybe some people are able to slow down. I know not everyone is. Some people have more pressure than ever. But if we do have the ability to slow down and go within and really think about what we want, what we really want, and are we actually working towards bringing that into fruition? And it's what we really want for the greater good of ourselves, as in like, what's right for me? I get clients to ask themselves sometimes, and what's right for the greater good? And that greater good in a context might be a greater good in your relationship with your beloved, it might be a greater good in your home, in your office, in your community, or it might be the world. If you have that humanitarian kind of quality about you, which I'd like to think we all do somewhere. That's my rant.
I love it. You're sharing such beautiful things, Elise, and it's inspiring me to share things that I know will be super valuable to the audience, and I love this so much. When we talk about success, and I wasn't always this way, to me, I've simplified life so much. Like, all that success means to me, and it can only be in the moment, for one. I don't really look at life beyond this moment, because whenever I get to that moment in the future, it'll still be this moment. So I'm just bringing it all the way back to the present. And if I'm connected, if I'm being who we truly are, if in that moment, then that's a successful moment for me. If I'm feeling at peace, if I'm feeling calm, if I'm excited, if I'm passionate, if I'm being loved, which is a frequency that can be measured, and it's really just a label that we put on a frequency, but truly it's when we're being who we truly are, which so if that moment is successful and the next moment is, and if I have enough successful moments today, then it's been a pretty successful day. And if I have enough successful days, and it's been a pretty successful week, enough successful weeks, been a pretty successful year, successful life. If I have enough successful years, and I just don't think about much more than that personally anymore. And here's the cool thing when we are having, and I'll just keep putting it in quotes because for me, all I care about is what's my present moment vibe. Am I being who I truly am? Am I being the light, or am I not? And I'm aware of it. Not making myself wrong for it. However, I'm very aware if I am or if I'm not. And the only thing that matters to me is to live as much of my life being that light, being who I truly am, so that I can fully enjoy this life as much as possible. Because when we go to experience those external things that maybe, at some point in our lives we try to use to allow ourselves to feel good. I was, again, probably one of the best in the world at this, is, doing all these things. What I've realized is we can go into the life experiences, the physical life experiences, because we did all come here to experience physical life and create physical things that we can touch and that we can feel. So when we go into those already connected, being who we truly are, the experience is so much different. So, for instance, if you're out there and maybe you've just had like a rough day or a rough week, and you're like, I just really need to go get a massage. Like the self-care, a lot of times we mistake self-care for self-love out there. I've noticed this a lot lately. Nothing wrong with going to get that massage. Awesome, go do it. I'm just telling you, it'll be a different massage if you are connected first, and then just decide that a massage is something that sounds nice, and that the experience of the massage will be totally different. Like you go to a whole different energetic place, going there already bringing your full self, your connected self, being who you truly are. And this goes for sex, this goes for every physical experience. Like if you don't need it to feel good, but you already feel good and then experience it, the places that we can go is infinite. It's unlimited. There's no limit to how much fun and enjoyment we can really have, but we don't need it to feel that way. Is the big thing that I like to make sure that I always emphasize.
I hear you. And it's shifting perception, I suppose. I'm pleased you kind of mentioned sex too, because it is everyone's hot topic, I suppose. But that kind of comes back to that selfless or selfish. Am I coming into this because I want pleasure and I want you to give to me? Just like you said, like a massage or whatever it is. Or am I coming into this with how I can connect with you and what I can give to you, and then what we can share and expand and ideally get to a point of unity? That's what we talk about when we talk about processes that create oneness, whether you believe that's tantric or yogic or Buddhist or whatever. And sometimes I think, in a sexual act, if it's two physical beings, you can have just the base of your palms connecting. That can just be genitals, or you can have like the whole palm connecting, and there might be some heart in that. And then if your fingers connect, like almost like in a prayer hands, that could be the mind. And we've got like what we call the three vehicles or three lower bodies in esoteric psychology: the physical, the emotional, the mental, connected. And if we can blend, if we can lift our consciousness, if we can lift our desire so high, we can have a merging and at one-ment, which then brings in that source, our higher self, light, God, whatever you want to call it, or maybe a fusion of soul, because essentially it is soul, a collective, and we have fragments of that to have our soul. We are the one. Like you said, that's the same force that goes through us all. That animation, what makes this body move right now is soul. Because even, if the brain and the heart were okay, they'd stop without the soul. At least that's where, esoteric psychology comes from. So having that ability to unify is incredible. Yet most of us don't get there. We don't even get to have a connection of mind, heart, and body. Most of us down here just kind of rubbing against each other, causing friction for a moment of pleasure. And that's how we live our entire lives. Everything is just a moment of pleasure, and what goes up must come down. And if you're having that experience of life, then it might be a time to question, is something missing here? Is this right for me? Is this how I want to continue my life? Is there something else that I could be exploring or learning or sharing? It's just something to muse on, as I sometimes say to my clients and followers, just to check in, because sometimes we get so swept up in our patterns or our habits or even our addictions. Addiction's a tricky one to see through sometimes, but let's just say patterns and habits for the majority of us, because we don't all have an addictive nature. Not understanding how limiting they can be. If you stick to doing the same thing on repeat day in, day out, is it serving you? Do you need to change things up? Do you put too much emphasis on your physical body and you ignore your mind? Maybe you need to pick up a book. Do you put too much emphasis on the mind and just like gaining knowledge that you forget to check in with your heart and actually have a heart-based or a feeling-based connection with someone, showing them compassion and empathy when they need it perhaps? When it comes to the three vehicles, that physical, emotional, astral, and mind, mental, we need to be aware we also have kind of a path of least resistance, we'll call it, which is the one vehicle that you relate to really easily and you think you're fine with it. That one often dictates and governs the others, and it can allow less time for the others. We don't invest enough in those other parts of ourselves. It's another thing we can check in with. Where are you physically? We can also say etherically if you're in that space, or emotionally, and where are you mentally? Which part needs some support or guidance or nourishment or time, encouragement, love? Maybe you're not being physically active enough. In a time like this, that can be challenging, but if you are able to leave the house, then do. Get out and go for a walk in nature. If it's the emotions, maybe you're holding on to things so tightly, you're not talking to anyone. Who do you trust? Who can you rely on? A loved one, a friend, a professional that you can share this with and start expressing yourself in a healthy way. Start learning that part of you that perhaps has been suppressed for so long. And if you're getting caught up in your head and your thoughts are taking over your reality and they just don't switch off and you're getting up at 2 a.m. and you don't know what to do with yourself, so you read a book and watch a show or whatever it is, then we might need to start there. But have some self-awareness of where you are and which part of you, which one of those perhaps 3 vehicles might need some more love or care or guidance right now. It's a good one to explore, especially with the current climate that we're all living in at the moment.
Absolutely. I love it. And once we start asking these questions, like what areas of life do I want to see evolve? Like the answers will not only come, but they'll come in ways that right now you can't predict. And you have been attracted to this podcast. And so a great next step, I think, for everybody would be definitely follow. I'm not done asking you questions by any means. This might sound like I'm closing it up, but I'm not. But a great next step for anybody would definitely be follow Elise on social media, because the things that she's sharing right now, and I just love the different directions that you are able to take people where, depending on where they're ready and what they're ready for. And such a beautiful analogy that you use with the 3 things. And once we start talking about the sexual part of life is my favorite, just because I found that when you come into it connected, and none of us have experienced life as fully as we possibly can because it's infinite. And so none of us have reached all the frequencies that there are to reach because they're infinite. So none of us have felt as good, had as much joy, had experienced as much love, given as much love. It's infinite. So if we're open to receiving and giving more, it's beautiful. Like the experiences that we can have as physical beings. This is what we came here for, to be physical. And so that part of life is my favorite. And if you are out there and you're just thinking of it as just like a physical experience and just using it as a, I'm not telling you there's anything wrong with that. I'm just telling you there's a lot more to it. I promise. As guys out there, like, I mean, I used to think that only women could have, full body energetic orgasm because you guys weren't really you guys could continue having a sexual experience even after, orgasm. And I thought only women could do that. But what I didn't realize and what I learned to be true as I started experiencing life in some of these higher frequencies, and I was just living my life there because it mattered to me to be at peace and then allow momentum to carry me up to some of the higher frequencies where I'm like, I'm just out in nature and I have a big smile on my face because I'm appreciating nature. So label that whatever you want to call it. But we get used to living life and touching some of these frequencies that maybe before then we didn't even know existed. Once we feel it once, like we can get back to it. Then you do that with things that you really enjoy. If I'm talking about a sexual experience, now I'm touching frequencies where it's like, whoa, I didn't even know that frequency is there. And whoa, now I'm having a full body energy orgasm and I don't have to, ejaculate in order to have this. Like, this is crazy. And most guys don't even know that exists. There was a time where I didn't know that it exists. So I'm excited for everybody out there that's open to allow themselves to continue to evolve because it's infinite. It never stops. Like, and at least I'm so happy that we're having this conversation right now because you're someone that definitely is opening up people's minds to just what's possible, for all of us. And answer to that is unlimited.
Definitely. And in order for us to even really contemplate what unlimited means, sometimes we have to think of ourselves as a light bulb, and perhaps we all have certain capacities within us. And maybe we have 100-watt capacity right now and we're trying to bring like 1,000 watts through us. It's not going to work. We're going to blow ourselves up. What I'm trying to get at here is that if your physical, your emotional, and your mental body is not healthy, is not a clear channel, that force, that energy, that power, that whatever you want to call it, can't flow through you to have a full body experience of anything, to have a complete, bliss heart-based experience of anything, to have an actual mind-based experience of anything or beyond, to the Buddhic or whatever conscious planes that you perhaps might be able to reach, which is far and few between. But reeling it back in, if your diet isn't great and you're smoking and drinking and taking drugs and not being cautious of nourishing this physical vehicle, you're probably not going to have that experience you talked about. Not saying you can't, but it's not as likely. Also, if you haven't processed some of the stuff that's going on for you in your feeling body, trauma, abandonment, abuse, disconnect, even just self-depreciation, whatever it is, that is going to block you up as well. And then if the mind isn't purified, is what the word I'm getting at, that we hear in the yogic and Buddhist and esoteric text. Purification is really, really key. I'm not saying you go do a juice cleanse and start running and, start praying to Buddha every day and you're going to be fine. It's actually a way of life. It's a kind of a peeling back of the onion, layer after layer after layer. Like you said, there is infinite possibility. We, in a human form, still have certain limitations. Not all of us can levitate, but we have the capacity. So we have to work with what we have, but we have to make sure that what we have is as pure as it can be. So that's another time to kind of get real with ourselves and check in. Like, is this kind of like the shushumna, we call it, like in yoga, but you can think of it like a highway. If you're nourishing the mind and maybe the physical body's good, but you're not nourishing or working through the feelings in the heart space and there's resentment there, or there's a lot of frustration or anger, or you're really governed by idealism and it's stopping you from actually enjoying life or flowing with life, then it's like having a massive kind of car pile up in the middle of you. The other two parts aren't going to be able to connect and flow through. You're not going to be able to be this person you're talking about, having this complete body experience or having kind of a unified, an at-one-ment, however we want to term it, right? All the different words for it. we're not going to find our way there very easily. We're going to kind of keep butting our head against the wall. And that's when we give up because it's too hard basket, and we go back to the ways we've always done it because that feels good and it's easy, and just give me the chocolate and whatever, the vodka. So be real with ourselves and find out where you need to start within yourself to purify yourself and understand it's not just a 1 week diet or fad thing. It's about creating lasting change. And that's why when we break any cycle, because these are cycles, any habits or I said before, any addictions, we have to understand it's not just for a period. It's about integrating a new way of being. Because we want you to live from this place. That place that you talk about, Noelle, people can have that. We can experience joy in the everyday. Joy is of the soul. Bliss is of the heart. Happiness is normally of the lower space. That's what, esoteric texts talk about. We can experience those things. And while it might be hard to stay there, there's always dips and valleys such as life. If we dip, we can bring ourselves up faster. But if we're not more purified, aligned at one, those valleys can last for a long time. And we can really lose ourselves there. Give up or not know what to do, or go back to old ways and habits, addictions, patterns that do not serve us, but they're easier. So I encourage us to find whatever challenge it is that we're dealing with, just take one little portion of it. Explore that. Seek help if you need it. There is no shame in asking for help. In fact, I like to think of it as actually having courage and strength. To put up your hand and go, you know what, I'm really struggling with this, I need some help. That's amazing. That's a great place to start from. If you can help yourself, amazing. If you need help, that's great too. Ask for it. But be aware that what we talk of here in this full body experience, yes, you can say it's your birthright, it's entirely possible, but sometimes it feels a little bit unattainable or unrealistic or just challenging as to where to go from here. Sometimes you've got to be quiet with yourself and just check in and find out what's right for you. Sometimes that might be too crazy and weird in itself, and like I said before, you might need to seek guidance. Maybe it is through a podcast. Maybe it's through watching, our conversation right now. Maybe it's through speaking to someone that you love and trust. Find your way to get there, but do take action, because just thinking about it or musing on it or, riffing on it with a friend for a day over chai might not be enough. We want to have an integrated life of harmony and balance and truth and wisdom and love and beauty and all this kind of jazz, which is, what you're here to experience.
Elise, you make my mind go so many, you inspire me so much. I love how you share. It's fun, where my mind goes. When you just said, because for all of us out there, it has to matter to you, because it's not going to change by accident. Like Elise said, it's probably not going to just change over, a cup of chai with a friend, just talking about it one day. It has to matter enough to actually want to see that area evolve. And the beautiful thing is, if you are someone that is inspired to reach out, whether it be Elise or to anyone out there, it's kind of just think of it this way. All of us through life experience could figure out how to climb up a mountain for sure. Would it be easier if you had a guide that's already been up the mountain before, to take you, say, hey, come this way? It might be a little bit easier. Not that you can't get up there on your own. So not telling anyone have a guide or not, but that's the way that I look at, reaching out. A lot of the things that I have evolved in have been, by myself, but it's come from synchronicity from the universe that I was open to, that I was asking for. And then the different resources like books and people and, information came to me, and I was ready to apply them. Probably one of the biggest ones, at least, was because we have these blind spots. So some of you out there might be not even aware right now of what areas of life you want to evolve in that are affecting your moment by moment, day by day frequency, which at least hit it right on the head. We can't experience, it's possible, but it's more difficult to experience on a regular basis some of the frequencies where it's I'm just joyful for no reason. If we haven't figured out what blind spots are habits for us that are kind of throwing that off. And I'll just give one example for me. If I wouldn't have asked in meditation, through guided meditation, to be shown blind spots that were affecting my energy on a daily basis, moment by moment, day by day basis, one of the big ones was being critical of myself, being critical about just being critical, being someone that was quick to talk a little trash like athletes do a lot, but just about just life, period. And it just wasn't serving me at all when it came to wanting to live life in frequencies that I'm talking about, because you could be in a good mood and then all of a sudden see something on the news, which I don't watch for a lot of reasons, or anything, choose to be critical of it. It doesn't matter to you whether you are or not. So then you go down that rabbit hole, momentum picks up, and you went from being in a good mood to now being super frustrated and like blaming and angry and upset. And now you live a big portion of that day in that frequency, which is going to make it a more likely it's going to be a challenging day. Like, I've never met anyone that said, I've been angry all day today and I've had the best day. Never met that person. It's just, you're going to have lots of synchronicities that are in tune with the frequency of being angry. So that's the really dramatic parts of the movie where it's like, dang, it's been a rough day. Like, I hope tomorrow's better for them. Well, that's you. You're the main character of your life, and what we're seeing on the movie screen is a reflection from how we're vibrating. And so important for it to matter first. And if you're watching, you're still listening to this podcast, obviously it matters to you, because like we've already been sharing, and Elise has shared so many awesome things to where if it didn't matter for you, you really wouldn't be listening to this. So I know that it does. So now we can just be open to receiving answers. And if you're inspired to reach out for a guide or a teacher or a coach or whatever it may be, or just be excited for the synchronicity to find you, because it will, in whatever way, shape, or form. And then when that energetic nudge to like, ooh, go this way, read this book, have this conversation, whatever it might be, and follow that, then life can continue to evolve. And it's just a practice. Once you discover these blind spots that maybe you don't know exist right now, and you bring them to the light, and then you start going on your journey, just a practice. This is why I love to say that my biggest weakness a decade ago is today is my greatest strength. And it's taken every bit of that decade because it's more of a strength today than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And it'll continue being a strength because it matters to me. And it's really all that matters to me is what's my present moment, vibe, frequency, energy, mood, because everything just kind of reflects from there. So I love that you inspired all of this stuff for me, Elise. This is such a fun conversation. You're an awesome human.
Thank you. I was just thinking of a story when you were speaking about letting certain things go. Like, let's say anger, because you could go to bed and kick your foot, and then all of a sudden you're on fire, and then the whole day spirals, and then you get stuck in traffic, which you probably don't at the moment, but in general you might. And one thing leads to another, and you've got your whole day kind of on edge, or like frustrated, or ready to like go at someone if they don't agree with you. And so I thought of this story where there's two monks walking along a path, and they come across this woman in this beautiful silk kimono, and she's standing next to this muddy part, and she doesn't know how she's going to get across without obviously ruining her beautiful silk kimono. So one of the monks picks her up and carries her across the way and puts her down. And the two monks continue on along their path for some time. And a long time after, the other monk turns to the man that picked up the woman in the silk kimono and says, "Why did you do that?" And the monk who picked up the woman looks at him and says, "I put her down ages ago. Why haven't you?" And so that's kind of us. We carry this stuff with us, and often it festers or it gets pushed back, and then other stuff gets on top of it before we know there's a whole mountain of rubbish underneath our carpet, our internal carpet, and you can't hide it anymore. It's there. We have to be aware of things that we suppress and hold on to, like gripping at smoke, like I touched up before, because it causes us damage. It can affect us emotionally and mentally and physically, and dare I say it does. So be aware if you're holding on to things, even if it's in a day as simple as something that just frustrates you, and all of a sudden you hold on to it for your whole day and it ruins your whole day. You're bitter, you're constricted, you're on edge, you're not flowing, you're not focused, you're not being of service and of love, you're not being compassionate, understanding. If you're not able to be that with yourself, you're kind of also stopping the ability to be able to give that to others. It's like almost holding your breath or trying to stop the ocean. There's an inhale and an exhale. There's a pulling in of the tide and a going out of the tide. We want to be in this universal flow because everything has energy. Everything that lives is constantly moving. If we try and constrict that because of our own blind spot of, let's say, frustration or anger or idealism, so something's not in alignment with our high ideal of how it should be, and if it's not this, then it's not good enough. Whatever our little personality quirk is, we all have them. We don't necessarily always know what they are. Like you said, they can be blind spots. We call them glamours in esoteric psychology. Some of them are really, really deeply seated, and we might not discover them until later in life. Or like you also said, Noelle, sometimes one that you discover takes you 10 years to fully alchemize it and turn it into like this gold that you now help people with. You now change your life because you were able to work through that. A decade, that might seem forever. In the life of a soul that is infinite, it's nothing, not even a drop in the ocean. It's a drop of a drop in the ocean. We have to learn to release our grip sometimes. Now, I'm not saying just go with the universe got your back and be all flowy and everything's fine, it'll come to you. No, you also have to do some freaking hard work. Bloody hard work, as we say in Australia. But that can be a joy, because what you're learning, what you're gaining, how you're evolving from that work is the joy. You signed up to come to Earth, the school of life, to learn and evolve, to integrate, and not just do that for yourself, but to do that as part of the collective. Humanity, consciousness, one love. We have all different ways of describing it. We are one, but we've been so splintered and so segregated through ideologies and belief systems. Unfortunately, religion and politics and finances, so many things have segregated us and separated us from ourselves. Even if you question why we're being kind of locked up at the moment, it is segregating, but it doesn't have to entirely separate us. Physical separation doesn't have to be a complete disconnect and detachment. We have to move away from this concept and understand that we are all connected. That means everything you do is affecting yourself. Everything you put into your body is affecting you. Everything that you're consuming, exposed to, is affecting you. You can choose to allow it to wash over you and let go. Kind of like when ducks argue. They'll have a real little heated moment and they'll be cracking at each other, and then they turn around, flap really vigorously and go off to opposite sides of the pond to let it go. And then they come back later and they reconnect. Sometimes we have to be the monk, sometimes we have to be the duck. What I'm trying to say is we need to learn to let things go and flow whilst doing our work. It's kind of like when they talk about the Buddha. He did everything he could to reach enlightenment before he gave up. And it was when he surrendered, we can call it giving up, but in the highest space it was surrender, that he reached enlightenment. We have to do everything in our capacity to be the clear channel, to connect with what we really are, to serve, to live a life of joy, to find the calm in the chaos, to ask for help when we need it, and take on board the suggestions that resonate with us and apply them. Learn and apply. Understand there'll be times of chaos. Understand there'll be times of tension that will lead to a breakdown, but sometimes breakdowns lead to breakthrough. There is winter before there is spring. This is all about the cycle and the rhythm of life, and we are a part of this, for we are this. So we're sometimes resisting the wrong things. We resist pain, and sometimes pain can lead us to exactly the next space of our evolution. Start to listen to yourself. Know if you're holding your breath or if you're inhaling and exhaling in the flow of life. Understand there are times when you need to put down the lady in the silk kimono. Understand when you need to flap your wings and just let it go and come back to your center. I love having just a simple technique of just a pause and some just simple deep calming breaths to bring yourself back to a center, because sometimes we need something to hold on to, something to help us come back to that harmonized, unified at one within ourselves. Find what works for you. Maybe for you it's going and having a shower. Maybe for you it's walk in nature, having a tea, calling a friend. If you can do it within you, great. If you need to ask for help, honor that. Start to learn your own rhythm, because here's the key. Know thyself, as the esoteric truism says, is what it's about. The more you know yourself, the more you can learn your beloved, your friend, colleague, the more the separate can become the we, can become the us, the more whole you're going to feel. Because nothing you buy, nothing you can have in this material world will ever be enough. It can be lovely, it can be an icing on the cake. Maybe you've got a fancy car and that's lovely. But if you just had that, you'd be sleeping very, very lonely, because you wouldn't feel a connection to yourself. You probably wouldn't have a connection with the person who's next to you if there is someone next to you. I'm kind of saying wake up and get real in a really loving way here. A bit of tough love. We've got to be honest with ourselves, because there is so much to experience that if we don't, it's a real waste. You're here to be the biggest, brightest version of you. So explore that.
That was beautiful, tough love, Elise, and it didn't seem that tough at all. It just seemed all from the beautiful frequency that you're flowing it from, and that resonated so much with me. that probably was the answer to the question that I asked, and I'm going to ask it just in case, because I want to make sure that we squeeze as much juice out of Elise as humanly possible, because she's giving us so much in this conversation. I love the analogy that you use, not even an analogy, but just the example you use with the ducks. I've been using one that a guest took further for me, because I love to point out that human beings are the only species on Earth that will bring past traumas and baggage into the present moment to where it actually affects our energy. And the example that I use is, you never see a gazelle out in the wild that was chased by a lion and happened to get away. It's just so stressed out in the jungle, like, oh my gosh, like I almost got eaten, and like I don't think I could go on today. Like they don't do that. They shake out vigorously, like do all that, and then they're back to just being a gazelle. And so, as human beings, like to be mindful of when we're bringing past, baggage into the present moment. Not saying you're wrong for it. It is a choice, though. And all of the past experiences that we've had have really already served us, because they've given us life experience. They've given us additional clarity, lessons, things that now we know we like and don't like, and where we want to go and don't go. And so if we can bring that with us to the present moment and be excited for that, and we can appreciate that, a lot of times we don't have to put ourselves through lots of additional trauma where we're reliving experiences over and over and over again, where nobody else, nothing else in nature does that except for us as human beings. And second thing you really inspired me to say, and I just want to make sure that I point out, is for those of you guys that are really wanting to know which parts of you, maybe are blind spots or you want to evolve, pay attention to the indicators, because like our body will give us beautiful indicators. Like for instance, when you start feeling symptoms of like illness, you can ask yourself, have I been stressed, worried, fearful, doubt? Has my frequency been a little bit denser leading up to that symptom in the hours, days leading up to it? And most of the time, I think if we're honest with ourselves, we can admit that this is a truth. And then also, when it comes to the words that we're speaking, great indicators for us, because if you don't know what your frequency is, and you find yourself condemning someone or judging someone or blaming someone, and like that, you can only do that from that frequency. You're never going to say a condemning word or a judgmental word towards another human being from a truly being in a place of love or happiness or joy or peace. Like you just won't. It's not possible. And so this is what I love to know, because I don't have to ever think about what's coming out of my mouth if I know that my frequency is one where I am connected. I'm being who I truly am. And just an example is like how we're flowing in this podcast. Like not thinking about anything. I'm just letting Elise share everything that she's inspired to share, and it's inspiring me. And I told her before we recorded, everything that you share is going to inspire me to share something, because I already know what frequency I'm starting on. And then the cool thing about energy is it never stays stagnant. So momentum just carries us up. It happens every conversation that I have with these. Every time I'm interacting with another human being, my favorite part of life is human connection, because I make sure that I go into that experience not needing the connection or the other human being to feel good, but I go in a vibration that I'm perfectly happy being in, whatever you might want to label that. And then from there, the momentum can carry us up to where it's like, whoa, now we're vibing high, now we're having a good time. And then the words, actions, everything just can flow from there. So that you inspired all of that again, Elise, and everything that you share is going to inspire me. And I only have like one more question, but you probably already answered it like 10 times over, but I just want to make sure that we don't leave any juice that's meant to come out in this episode inside of you right now. So,
go for it, my friend.
So the only thing because knowing that the internet is going to last for a pretty long time, probably outlive us physically, and for those of you guys listening to this in 100 years, maybe I'm still here in the physical, maybe not. You can still get in tune with me, get in touch with me. I'll be happy to play with you. That's another conversation. But just anything that you would want the humanity to know, whether listening to this live right now or when it is released on iTunes and Spotify in a few weeks, or in 100 years, that you would just want to make sure that they know from you, anything that you feel would uplift and impact. And you've been doing it the whole time, so feel free to just refer to the rest of the conversation.
No, I hear you. I kind of like to think in 100 years we're definitely going to be on a decentralized network, and something amazing like Hollow will be our platform, and we'll be beyond all this 1% controlling the people and the population. So, for a decentralized experience and not a centralized experience. When I say decentralized, I mean like completely in the power of the people, that we all have the power, that there is transparency, that there is oneness, that there is unity. It's not like the few controlling the many. That's what I'd like to see, but that's not what I wanted to share. I just thought that when he said 100 years from now, I'm like, we're not going to be on an Amazon-owned platform or something like that, you know. Harmlessness is what came to me when you were speaking just before about, you know, the critical, the judgmental, those kind of things. When we actually embody harmlessness, which many of the Eastern wisdoms talk about and live and embody, when we come from that place, our whole experience of life changes. And harmlessness isn't just in the simple form of not harming someone physically. We understand that. There's also laws and rules in place that if you physically harm someone, like you try and take someone's life, you're going to get punished for that. We know there's a reaction to our actions. So most of us, not all of us unfortunately, but most of us honour that. We don't have a drive to want to cause physical harm. But sometimes emotional harm, we don't always understand how easily that can happen. And we can do that sometimes quite easily with others. And then there's mental harm, where you can be having thoughts inside your mind about someone that is projected to them, but because they can't see it, perhaps they don't hear it, we think it's okay. No sense of harmlessness to ourselves, because those critical thoughts can even be of yourself, or you could be physically hurting yourself, you could be emotionally hurting yourself. No harm to yourself or to others is the way of an honest, conscious, loving life. We want to live harmlessly in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions or deeds. And that doesn't just mean for some people, you know, not eating animals or not saying nasty things. It goes pretty deep and beyond that. It's one thing that I've spoken about on my podcast, Sacred Guidance with Stella Muse. I just dedicated a whole kind of episode to it because we understand how multifaceted it is and how much it can actually influence our lives and help us kind of clear or purify, like we touched on, those three physical vehicles, emotional and astral, that I talked about with you, and mental. So harmlessness is one thing that you might want to explore, and just check in with yourself if you have critical self-talk. If you are emotionally hurting yourself or others, manipulation, crazy highs, crazy lows, projection, blame, or physically hurting yourself or others. And it might seem like a bit of a downer in some ways to bring our energy to this focal point, but if we want to be conscious and connected and at one and actually strive to experience a life of love, a life where we share love and receive love, then a lot of it comes back down to what I touched on before, self-worth, because self-worth is the foundation of self-love. But before you can even get to that space, you have to embody harmlessness. So I guess coming full circle back to where we want to go, this is the opposite of the spectrum that we might need to check in with and just see where we're at right now and see if we're congruent with that, in alignment with that, or perhaps physically or emotionally or mentally, if we need to look in with honouring harmlessness, if we are, if we aren't, where we can do a bit of work on that area, seek guidance if we need it, or just maybe meditate, muse on, explore that space within us to be a clearer, more beautiful, vibrant channel to bring joy and love and light into our experience of life, and to share that with all the people that we're here to share it with. Because after all, this is a shared journey, although it's a solo one as such, because we come in alone as such, we go out alone as such, but the whole time we're here is shared. And when we go, we're not alone either. Back to the port souls, I say. Thanks, my friend.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that last bit of the, not last, you have infinite juice to share, I know you do. And I'm already affirming, Stella, this, or at least this will be the first, not the last collaboration with you. You will be reached out to me for sure in the future. I already know it. It's not promised to me or any of us, but as long as I'm here collaborating, you are just the human that I like to collaborate with. And I really appreciate you for sharing all this beautiful energy with us today. Just has been awesome to hear everything that
Thank you, Noel.
Yeah. And what Stella just said, last thing, I'm not going to go long on this, but just to give you guys more peace, because I love what you just shared about harmlessness. It can only be in the moment, all of us. So don't think about what was I yesterday or how am I going to be tomorrow. Like in the moment, if we are harming ourselves or others, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, how Stella just mentioned, we can't be connected with who we truly are and harming someone else or ourselves at the same time. So it's just moment by moment. And again, all we have to do is to be able to check in with how are we being. Like, I don't care if you say that you love someone. If you're throwing something at them from across the room, right now you're not being love. So it doesn't matter to me like anything else besides like who are we being right now? And if we're connected with who we truly are, then awesome. You can be very, very comfortable with that and allow that to show you areas like we've been talking about this whole time, and then it becomes a practice. And or at least I have no problem saying, stop it, Noel. If from the 10-year ago challenge of being critical with myself or others, I now notice it with one critical thought, not after a minute or an hour or a day or longer. It's one critical thought, and it's stop it, Noel. It's just not. We're not going that direction, so it doesn't affect my energy if it's just so. But it's an indicator also, because if it's even coming out of my mouth, then it's ooh, what's my frequency been leading up to to that thought? It's a great indicator that I appreciate. So awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
What would love do? Maybe is our last question to think about. What would love do in this moment? Because if you need to say stop, maybe that realignment is what would love do. Pause, take a breath, reassess. Just an idea.
Absolutely. I love it. Such a fun conversation. I really, really appreciate it. You guys definitely share this episode with everyone on the planet. Make sure that they listen. Now, the people that are ready for it and that are ready to receive it will definitely listen. And just appreciate you guys out there that are tuned in live and that will listen to this whenever this episode comes out. And for those of you guys listening 100 years from now, yes, we'll probably be listening to it differently. And at the same time, it'll be perfect timing for you as well. Thank you guys that have been rating and reviewing the podcast. You're making it easier for people to find. And there's no one review limit on iTunes or any of these places. So feel free to go on there and say that Elise Human was awesome and this is what I learned. And I'll screenshot it and send it to her. Definitely greatly appreciate all of you guys that are doing that. And I'll tune in with you guys soon with another awesome human. For those of you guys live, I'm going to go live again in an hour from now or hour and a half with another awesome human that's in Thailand right now. So just appreciate all of you out there. We're all co-creating this beautiful life together in 2020 and beyond. And I'm just excited to be one expression of this non-physical energy that all of us truly are, and happy to be co-creating with all you guys out there. So goodbye for now. Talk to you all soon. Have a beautiful day whenever you see this. And Elise, you're awesome. So much fun. Awesome. Talk to you guys soon. All right, I'm going to stop the stream and I'm going to say bye to you, Elise. You're awesome. So much fun. Okay, streaming is stopped. Goodbye.